Well, this is a timely bunch. That's always good to know. Although, is it mostly the Europeans and overseas folks that are all on time, and us left coasters are just a little behind on things, as we normally are? Can
You
never
went
tell,
to your
Christian.
1980s computer lab? Sorry, sorry to interrupt. I like your
Ah,
background.
yeah, I keep this, in the back because it's all my old machines. This is This is a picture I took when I got. So this guy on this side is Nathan Schneider, who teaches a class at the University of Colorado Boulder called Media Studies, Digital Media Studies. And I mean, I would seriously go and take this class because he goes through the entire history, and he built this media lab and has been collecting all the machines, all the software to tell the whole story. So, yes, does it feel a little bit like memory lane? Um, but like I said, I would totally take the class. He took me for a tour of this when I went to visit him. He's if you've never heard of him, he's written, I don't know, 5, 6 books. He's one of the world experts on cooperatives and social enterprise, especially digital social enterprise. So he's one of the consultants or advisors to the first person cooperative.
Yeah, I'm very
And he's very
familiar with his
excited.
work. I've
You,
read
who
like three of
is?
his books.
Oh, Steve. Yes.
Yeah, I've read
Yeah.
like three. I've read like three of his books. He started MetaGov, which I'm highly involved in, so I'm very familiar with Nathan, and he does
That's
deserve your.
right. That's right. Yeah, fantastic. He is quite the guy, and like I said, he's very excited about what we're doing here. A lot of folks, if you haven't read his books, I'm trying to remember the one. It's called Governable Spaces. Nathan Schneider, Governable Spaces. I think I have a link to that. Hang on, let me see if I put it. Uh, let's see.
Hey, Drummond, it
Uh,
has been posted online. If you someone posted
Someone already got
on
it.
the
Thank you.
hey, yeah, yeah,
Good. Got
second
way
book
ahead of
down
me.
the list that posted.
Yes, and
Second
that's
book
all of
on the
his
list there.
books. Right. Governable Spaces. The reason I particularly recommend it, and the thing he was most excited about, when I was talking to him about what we're doing with the decentralized trust graph and first person cooperative, is digital feudalism. His contention is it's built into all the systems we're using today because that's how they first started to design networks, right? Every system has God power. It has, an admin that has rights to everything. And therefore, we sort of built in essentially monarchies and hierarchies into every system we use, and that's why we ended up. I mean, he makes a really strong case. That's why we ended up with what we're experiencing right now with this resurgence of autocracy. And it's really quite a compelling case. So we need to design systems that allow for decentralized trust, and that's why he's excited about it. So good topic to start the day with. I'm going to get going here because let me share my screen. We have a very full agenda, as you may have seen. There's seven, which, hang on. You got to highlight that screen in order that I get the right one up here. Bah, bah, bah. There it is. Good. Okay. As I said, I was up until midnight last night assembling all the things on today's agenda. And where is that? I got the chat up here. There we go. So welcome everyone to it is April Fool's. But no April Fool's jokes on this agenda. I should have stuck one in there last night. By the way, it says this one happens to say revised because Nikki, I created this whole agenda without noticing you'd already created the agenda page, and you can't save a new page. I'm just saying, so when I went to save it, it wouldn't save, and then I finally realized you'd created one, and so I combined the two, but I had to give it a different name, so that's why it says revised. Anyway, as always, we share our antitrust policy notice. Um, Believe it or not, I was in a meeting yesterday where I was describing what we're, creating and what we're doing with the first person cooperative and where this is going to be headed for personal AI. And it was the first time someone brought up and said, "Are you going to run into antitrust problems?" I was like, "There's no antitrust until you have a market. So let's hope we run into antitrust problems at some point." Anyway, happy to share that. Uh, as always, we check here. In fact, I need to bring up the participants list. Are there any? We always give it an opportunity to highlight any, or for new members to introduce themselves. So, just pulling up that list to see if there is anyone. You can raise your hand. You can put something in the chat to introduce yourself, or I finally created a macro for this bio. You can add your bio to our bio page. All right, quick review of the agenda because we had a lot of things in here. Every task force, except I think one, has something to report here today, and we have 5 active task forces. And so we'll just pop down through them. There are discussions going on in several of them that we want to highlight, get your attention on. And then a new repo suggested by Martina, and we talked about it last week, and it is there now, and she has started the first discussion there in the last since I went to bed. So she'll give us a view of that. And the last one is, well, we need another task force. We the ZKP that we need, I'm just calling it the DTG ZKP. There are folks starting to come to the table, and we have a great presentation coming next week that we'll talk about when we get down to that item. So it's going to be a very full meeting. We'll start out as always. If there aren't any introductions with any announcements, I'm just reminding everyone one of them, IW 42, is coming up, and they're still looking for sponsors. The travel policies in the U.S. are not helping with attendance, but they're persisting on. So just reminding everyone of that. Are there any other announcements that folks would like to make? Move into edit mode here. All right, I'm just looking. Oh, and thanks for posting the books. All right, in that case, since we have
Well, I
so many
guess I
things to
can
get,
make a
go ahead. Go
quick
ahead, Steve.
announcement, Tom. And I did just drop into the Discord the first draft of my of 5 mathematical trust papers that I'm going to be writing this month. So it's a pretty quick, easy read if anybody wants to take a look at it and give me some comments. Thanks.
And what's the name of that paper, Steve?
Uh, Fair ratings within groups, I think something like that
And the general topic of those 5 papers is,
is just when you have variable trusts in situations, how do you utilize that mathematically for various perspectives? So, yeah, basically each paper is a different perspective of trust, the group perspective, the individual perspective, an unbounded perspective where you're looking across groups, and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
okay. And this one is called Fair.
Yeah, like I
Last one's
said, I
called,
think like fair group rating, some very boring title. It doesn't have a sexy title.
that sounds good. Okay. And did you put that in the chat, a link to
Yeah,
that?
no, I put it in the DTG Discord channel.
Oh, DTG Discord channel. Okay, good. We will
Yeah.
get that and get it into the notes. All right. That sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
Any other announcements? Last call. And if not, I'm going to turn it over to Nikki. Nikki, do you just want me to present this or do you want to share?
No, I think in the interest of time, we're a very packed agenda, so I'll try and just cover this off in 5 minutes because we discussed it quite fully yesterday in the risks in the task force meeting. So what we've developed is a bunch of tools, which are the persona, the requirements specified as scenarios, epics, and user stories. And then essentially what I've called the RAF core, which is, the risks, the controls, the guardrails, their assurance tests. Um, and using an AI tool, I use Claude, but others are available. You can take those documents as they are at the moment, or Excel spreadsheets, take a specification that you're writing and ask the AI to evaluate the specification against the risks and harms guidance, and requirements, and it will spit out a an evaluation, which is what it did with version 3 of the credential spec. So we went through how that could work, and I will get it all into GitHub in the next 2 weeks, and it's 2 weeks because I'm taking a little break. And then we'll uh, just see how it works, see if it is useful, and iterate and improve it as we go along. So that's the core reason it's been developed, to help us all have that risks and harms lens on the work we're doing. So when we were discussing it yesterday, there was some thinking that maybe you could, obviously it could be applied to other specifications that are coming out of other forces. Part of that process is which is what I did with the V3 spec, is once you've put it through the specification, you can then update the core risk assessment document, because risks are reduced, or they or new risks arise depending on what's specified in the specification. So that's the continual updating of the risk assessment. But then there are other ways you could use it. For example, applying it to a governance framework, or developing a set of assurance tests that are similar to conformance tests but cover governance as well as technical qualities. And you can ultimately, things are kind of linked together through these trust metrics, like how do I know this guardrail's in place, for example. So you could have persona directed trust metrics, like what matters to me in my community, that I need to be able to see in order to increase my confidence in using the service or participating. And ultimately, obviously, you could potentially put just a chat interface on it, and then laymen and women in inverted commas could just query it to, what do I need to put in my governance framework? Is there a little process I need, what do I need to be aware of for my folks and my context? So the next steps are, I'm going to align more closely with the interaction flows work that Martina's been doing, and get this, as I say, get this stuff into GitHub. And that should leave time. What the task force would like to be doing is spending more time working on your stuff, on getting involved in the discussions on GitHub, applying that RAF lens, and then really using the time in the meetings for the really tricky problems, or where there are trade-offs that we're going to have to make. And hopefully together we can iterate and improve the tool set, and find other applications depending on the needs of the team. Any thoughts or questions? There you go, I'm done.
When you say put in GitHub, does that mean like it's gonna be like a spec up type document or something else?
I'm laughing because that would be Nikki's the set of documents now is complex enough that just getting them into GitHub would be is going to be a challenge. And we talked about that on the call yesterday. Um, but Nikki, you did mention yesterday the goal of actually this task force producing a spec, right?
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
uh, I
You talked
mean,
about the assurance.
ultimately, yeah, I ultimately like we in te for technical trust, we have these test conformance suites, don't we? And testing tools. So I can develop something and run it through one of the tools, and it can tell me if it conforms to the specification. And I'd love to be able to do the same with terms. So um, yeah, I
What I'm
think
what I'm what I'm highlighting here is I recall what you were calling it, right? The
yeah, an
assurance test suite,
assurance
right?
test suite that you could
Right,
run and that would produce the metrics that matter to you, the indicators that matter to you.
right.
Um, but there are a bunch of assurance tests specified in the documents in the tool set. And obviously, I'm not a developer, so I don't know what's feasible, but I think it should be possible that we could develop a little assurance test suite that folks can use to start to look at some of the uh, governance implementation and what it really means in socio-technical terms as opposed to purely technical conformance terms. Because there's a lot in the the discussions and the motivation that goes way beyond good tech. Uh,
Exactly. That's why this concept of having an assurance test suite and what we briefly talked about, well, that actually could become a specification from this task force. It's just when the question comes up about using spec up T, which is really designed primarily for writing specs and terminology, that this could be, yeah, I see Otto gets it. I was like, whoa, this is a powerful new idea that really goes to the heart of the Trust ORP architecture of it's a technology stack and its governance. You have to have both. And so assurance test suites start to go in both. And Brendan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to second. I think it's a great idea, and uh, yeah, just having anything that whether it's a conformance test, assurance test, is going to help the ecosystem. And yeah, it's true that AI could really help with this. So I like this. Thank you.
Very cool. And Otto, no, do you have, yeah, go ahead, Otto.
Eh, I'm new here, right? So I don't want to create work for anybody that maybe wasn't planning on doing it. Um, but I mean, yeah, like it would in the future make sense. But like Nikki, yeah, I mean, if it's just a README Markdown document that gets posted in GitHub, I mean, that's just as fine, I'm guessing, right? Like I was just more wondering what uploading to GitHub means,
yeah,
but
I mean,
please don't think that's any
it's a
work for
really
you.
good question, Otto, and this is where my skill set is lacking. But after some really brilliant coaching from Drummond and Sankarshan and Martina yesterday, I'm going to give it a good go because there's a way we can get the stuff in there now that's quite limited. But then my understanding is from my from using the tools is that because I want it to be really useful for developers, um, that there are ways in which we can set up scripting so that it can kind of automatically post updates but still control it in a spreadsheet. But that's way in the future. For the time being, we just want to get two spreadsheets and a Word document and a little mini set of HTML files, which just make it a little bit more accessible and easier to kind of understand what's there, um, into the task force repo, and then start working together with you guys in the task forces to make use of the tools and just iterate and improve and discard if it's not useful. But what I will say is all of this stuff is based on two things. First of all, the personas, the people whose needs we're trying to address, and then putting them in scenarios which test the limits, are deliberately designed to kind of stress test both governance and technology, and as per the Harms paper, ask the question, what could possibly go wrong here, and work from that basis. So it's driven from the kind of human experience perspective, and then I've just used the tools to speed up what would normally take months of analysis and so forth.
Sounds
So
good. Yeah, you just start with like a markdown table, and then it evolves from there.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
need to be like super. Yeah,
yeah,
I tell
yeah,
you
yeah.
guys, I'm going to be a bloody GitHub ninja by the end of this. I'm going to be training you up on how to use it.
Yeah, well, you already are training me up on some of the stuff you're producing with with Claude's working with Claude. It's really, I highly recommend anyone who's in this topic to go review these docs. Nikki put the link to the master doc, I think, in the chat. It's really this right here, this potential to use a natural language processing interface to query, you know, for when you're building a VTC and you need to put together trust metrics. And ultimately the policies that you're going to follow. This is really powerful stuff. This really goes into the governance side of the stack. It's going to be amazing. Okay, Nikki, anything else, or should we move
No,
on to? Fantastic. All right. Again, that task force meets every other week, so nothing next week, but a week afterwards on Tuesdays at 7:30 Pacific. I know it's on my calendar. Okay, let's pop on to the credentials task force. And The thing we reported last week on our work plan, we have because I have bottlenecked a little bit on that. I haven't made any progress on that, but I'm going to talk with Jeff and ideally Martina if she's available right after this call, and we're going to get a plan for that together because I've got to travel over this next week, so I don't want to be the bottleneck on that. But we do have and Jeff, is there anything else that you would want to report other than this discussion that I finally got caught up on last night that I'll highlight next?
I'm good. Thanks, Drummond.
Okay. So I did want to point out, so in the, I'll go up to the top of this. So in the credentials, there's a discussion going on about and this is one of the ones that potentially, now that we have this new repo that Martina will talk about, might have been there, but it does, because it came up around member credentials, it makes sense that it happened here. And Martina posted this question around, I think that started from terminology in the in our draft credential spec. And so it got into this question about entities and nodes and what is, quote, in the graph. And I didn't realize it, but I'd been tagged with a question but from Brendan about, hey, this entity node question. So I thought it was worth taking. It took me a while to boil it down, and this is what I wrote last night. I'll bring it up on the screen. I think get it almost all up on there. And I just want to see if we are all on the same page about this terminology. And I know in some cases this is comes down to literally, the meaning of particular words in English, which is, our standard language. But it's of course important that we make sure these things are clear in, for anyone coming to it. So the question around entity and node, I point out to everyone that we do have another task force. Concept terminology has been, started about 6 months after we started. and we've got about a 500 term glossary of the sort of core terms we use for all kinds of stuff. Entity is in there with a very broad definition that came originally from Estes Labs. It's like literally someone or something that is known to exist. It is like anything that you can be identified in any way. And I know it's a very broad term, but that is the point. You are not characterizing, then you start to specialize in what you're talking about. So when it came to the definition of a DTG node, what we said was in the DTG, a node represents an entity that participates in trust relationships with other nodes. And then we call out the 4 types of nodes. And we say a DTG node is always identified by at least one DTG verifiable identifier and can be interacted with via a verifiable trust agent. These are the 2 requirements. So you have a VID and you have a VTA. And so I think as I read through the question that was coming up, I was like, oh, the issues is this term. What does it mean to represent? And so I just said, okay, where can I get a good broad definition of that? And I pulled this right out of Gemini, as it happens these days. I don't know how Google's what they're going to do about their ad revenue, because I haven't followed a Google ad in a very long time. Anyway, if you follow this definition about represent means to act or stand in or speak for something or serve as a sign, example, or image of something else, that's exactly what I meant when I was drafting it. So then I realized, okay, if we boil it down to what that means, it means every DTG node represents one of these 4 types of entities. And every DTG node is represented by a verifiable trust agent. So that's why it is in English, it would make sense to say, okay, the graph is, you can draw it between the agents, but you can also say all those agents represent entities that are in the graph because they have a VTA. So I don't know. Now I'm stopping here, having written this up, to ask Martina and Brendan that we're having this discussion. Does that help clarify it? But before we get to that, Nico has his hand up. Go ahead, Nico.
Oh, in this taxonomy, I was just curious, and I think Riza also is kind of getting into this, but we might be saying this otherwise. Where does something like a VLEI, so like a verifiable legal entity, come into this? Would this be a VTC?
No, a VLEI would be a verifiable identifier that I'm highlighting right up here in this definition. So if an entity has a VLEI, but as and VLEI, just for folks, LEI is legal entity identifier. It's designed for anything other than a person, any kind of legal entity. It is a globally unique identifier. You can read the LEI page on Wikipedia. And a VLEI is a verifiable credential for a VLEI that basically makes it cryptographically verifiable. So when you ask the question, Nico, a VLEI, that's a credential. Are you meaning, is the question about the LEI or about the credential?
Well, in this case, it's about, right, what the credential represents. So by nature, both, right? Or is that incoherent?
Well, the way I would put it is the VLEI is an identifier for what we would
Yes.
call a verifiable trust community.
Right. Right.
So
Okay. That answers my question. Perfect.
good.
That's what I
Yeah.
suppose. Okay.
Because
Thank
it
you.
is an ideal credential for a verifiable trust community to be able to assert.
Right.
And the interesting
It's
thing is,
it's a VTC with legal implications, essentially.
yes, exactly. And the perfect thing to be able to actually query or talk to the endpoint that would be identified with that VTC would be that there's a verifiable trust agent that you could say, hey, can you show me or give me a proof of LEI credential? And it could respond with that. That's how it would, that's sort of the
Bingo.
relationship of those 2 things. Okay, Riza, go
Bingo.
ahead.
Yeah, so there is legal liability implied from this conversation. My question was, does every node link to an entity with personhood? And I think the answer is no, because you said that corporations, which are legal entities, can also be the final sort of LEI or L. Yeah, yeah. So a legal entity identifier could identify a person or a corporation. Is that the correct understanding?
Actually, I want to be clear. I was trying to make clear. LEI, as defined by GLIFE, the Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation, they call it a legal entity, and it's a long-standing. I've worked with them for a couple of years on their governance framework. They adopted sort of an international view of that term, which is legal entity. People are not covered under that category. Elsewhere in the world, people are legal entities or legal persons, but they are like, no, LEIs are not for people. They're for any other legal entity besides a person. So if we talk about LEIs, they would only identify what we call a VTC. Any form of VTC could have an LEI. Well, it has to be registered as a business entity someplace, and we're actually a little broader than that. But anything that would have an LEI or could qualify to get an LEI would be what we call VTC. Okay.
But why wouldn't an
Hmm.
agent, an AI agent, be one?
Well, that's what I was about to finish. Part two is of these four node types, only a VTC would have an LEI. None of these other three would have it. People have legal liability. I would submit that devices don't, and AI agents, I don't think are going to, but it's coming up already. Are there going to be? Because I think behind an AI agent, you're always going to want to have a verified, authenticated delegation relationship with the entity that has the legal liability, be it a person or a VTC of some kind. So I don't think
Okay,
the
so
AI
it's only
agents.
the thing where the buck stops is the thing that is a VLIE, VLEI, VLEI.
No, to be
Okay,
clear, a VLEI or an LEI only, just think they could only a VTC can have an LEI. It's just that's the way they
okay,
define them.
all right.
This is a life specific thing. It's not they decided to go with this definition of legal entity that doesn't necessarily match with the way other people use the term. So that's a life specific thing. But from a general legal thing, the two entities that have legal liability and legal responsibility are people and VTCs, whereas devices and AI agents, you can't go sue in a court, for example. Does that make sense? Okay, so I want to close on this topic, check in with, and we don't have to do it in real time unless, but if either Martina or Brendan can look at this and say, yeah, you're on board with this, or there's still an open issue. You can speak up now, or we can continue the dialogue. Go ahead, Brendan.
The only thing I was going to say is I think it generally looks good, and I appreciate the clarity you're bringing, from the trust over IP kind of definitions. The one thing I just wanted to make clear, I think it's worth distinguishing is, yeah, where the buck stops versus one of their devices or, what in the original language that we had, I didn't think that was clear enough. So that we know, that's why I proposed entity because that would be, like a user or an agent. Um, and each of those might have multiple devices or, things, nodes attached to them. So that's what I hope to clarify. Everything you put here made sense, but I'm still feeling it's a little muddy, that somehow that feels like an important distinction to me.
It feels like, and I'm displaying, so if someone else can note the action item, we need to continue this discussion or start a new one about these four node types and legal responsibility. That I think is going to be important. And now Martina has her hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Brandon. So I think there needs to be some more clarification because I don't necessarily agree with your proposal here, Drummond, and I don't think representation as a word was the main issue. But we can take it to another discussion. It already took quite some time.
Can we agree then to take an action item among the three of us for
Yeah,
someone
sure.
to start?
Sure.
And let's have a new discussion. But then I'm going to toss it over to you and Brendan Martina to decide. Do you want to have that new discussion, in the credential repo, which might be fine, or in the general repo, which you're going to talk about in a minute? It's totally up to the two of you, but let's agree. Let's have a new discussion, and we'll drive that to clarification because I do think it's an important point. Okay. All right. In keeping with, we're over the halfway point, and we're not quite, I think, halfway through the agenda. Oh, and this is great. Okay, so I'm going to pop down to next. Trust Task Protocols. I just wanted to actually give a shout out to Martina because she helped Glenn through the issue last night to finally get a homepage up for the Trust Task Protocols spec. It was stuck due to CLA issues, and thank you, Martina, for getting Glenn Gore through that because we now have a homepage. This was text that he had submitted a couple weeks ago, but it was stuck with a GitHub CLA problem. They, I haven't actually reviewed it closely. Glenn drafted it based on other stuff, so I think it needs a couple tweaks. But I just wanted to point out to everyone, we now have a homepage there, and he wants to start making contributions to specific trust tasks that would be included in that spec. So that's just a heads up on that topic. And again, thank you, Martina, for helping Glenn through that. Okay, next up on R cards. There is a new discussion that it came out of our discussion last week. I'll pop over to that one. It's the S cards topic. And all it does is, as you can see on the screen right here, is fairly short. Oh, an R card could be a more specialized form of a general data sharing mechanism, as simple as we can make it. But this, Brendan, would be what would address your, suggestion about more generalized forms of data sharing, like even dynamic data sharing, essentially controlled by the VDS. So, which gets into some pretty interesting design challenges. But anyway, that's the bucket in which it would fall. So, I wanted to note that there, and any ideas that folks have around that, please join that discussion. That is, I'll put that in the chat here. And I'll just say this is exactly how folks like Sankarshan in particular are encouraging us to use these discussions and to maximize the value of our asynchronous time. And yes, Carly, you're right. DIDs are a subset of VIDs. That's a topic in the trust spanning protocol spec. All right, that's all I wanted to say about that. Is Marcus with us? Yeah, Marcus. Do you want any updates on your work on agent names, other than the fact that you and I talked? We are planning to do a session together at IW42.
Yes, that's right. I've been working a little bit on the design of agent names and agent name registration, creation, resolution, but not much to share right now. But yeah, looking forward to IIW and presenting and discussing current state of that.
Fantastic. Now, just a reminder, Marcus, any sort of questions or any discussions you want to have about the work you're doing there, please do start them in the Agent Names Task Force. And again, the general proposal, actually I didn't follow because I worked too late last night, is if you start a new discussion, put just a one-liner and a link to it in the Discord channel so people are aware, oh, there's go check that out. Excellent. All right. So Martina, I'm going to we're on to you to talk about the new general repo. Do you want me to share that, or do you want to share it?
I can share it.
Perfect. I will stop sharing here and let you go for that.
Can you see my desktop?
Yes.
Shit. Wait a second.
And I'll put a
can you
link in.
Can you share it exactly? Because I had it prepared, but I lost the window since I'm sharing now. As Roman mentioned, we came up with the idea that we thought it would be beneficial for everyone if we had like kind of an umbrella repo where all the great pieces and deliverables that are being developed in the different task forces are, put together and discussed from that kind of higher layer of abstraction. And so when you enter, we have a README file prepared. It's clickable. So when you, for example, go to the task force, you see here an overview of all the task forces and can go to the specific repositories. The same with, we also have labs. I don't know whether every one of you was aware of that. And there is just some general information to navigate the entire decentralized trust graph working group. What we also have by now is we worked on the discussion section. So here are the current categories. Those here are like more the overall general questions, for example, or ideas and proposal on the overall architecture or how pieces could be put together, as well as some interaction flows or use cases. We also have, it's still empty, but the idea is to have like an always welcome part where there's some information for people who would like to get involved, but have no idea what the VTC and the VTA and the PNM is. So to help them a little bit get familiar with the decentralized trust graph. What's already there is one question on the overall design, just this one. So you can take a look and answer, hopefully. And maybe as a special thing was we integrated some templates. For example, if you go on the Q&A, see here, it's not just a text field, but it's structured. So my ask to you is, if you stumble over anything where you think, oh, this is mandatory, that doesn't make sense, I always have to put in a blank space or something, because sometimes there's no information on a field that is mandatory, or when you think, hey, one specific field or checkbox may be missing, please reach out, let me know, and I'm happy to adapt it.
Cool. Can you go back to the your list of templates that you created there?
The categories?
Yeah, the categories. Yeah. No, this is great. You're doing or I just wanted to highlight, this is a great feature of GitHub discussions that you if you take the time, I mean, there's sort of the default categories, but you take the time, you can go in and categorize discussions for that context, and it just makes it easy to manage, a bunch of them, and also for others to come in and say what is being discussed on this topic. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Yeah.
For
and
every
this is
category, there is a short description, what it should be about. If you think it's not clear, or it's maybe too close to one of the others, also please let me know. I went over it, but some things may have slipped.
No, it's perfect. And of course,
just one very important thing, if a discussion is really, let's say, in detail about relationship credentials, for example, then please have the discussion in those repos. This repo really is on a more overarching level for discussions and information.
That is exactly what I was about to say, is this. Now we can, if you have something where you say, I don't know which repo, or this affects multiple of our task forces, have it here. And of course, you can link off to discussions and, in any of the others. This is, one of the beauties of the web and of GitHub. So cool. I put in the chat, we've heard multiple times, even though we have our Confluence wiki and it's quite a powerful tool, some folks really sort of, if if you don't have a presence on GitHub, they're just very GitHub oriented. Turns out, especially developers for some reason. So it really helps to have a essentially front door on GitHub, and this is now our front door on GitHub. Thank you, Martina, for making it such an attractive front door.
You're welcome. I hope it helps.
Excellent. All right, and we are just on time for our last topic, and I will share my screen again. Like over here. There we go. Okay, I was just showing that as well. So back to, whoops, there. Okay. Okay, last thing is, as I mentioned, this is, want to give everyone time to, don't just want to say, hey, that's a new task force. We want to socialize the idea for folks that have been, active at this working group for a while. Everyone knows that ZKP and the need to have ZKP, the ability to use zero knowledge proofs of your against your trust graph in order to prove proof of personhood, but also in some cases proof of membership in relevant VTCs without having to reveal personal data. It's a ZKP requirement. If there's anyone that has not read, I'm going to copy this out here. The original personal credentials paper, they got a lot of this going. I highly recommend that. Just put that in the link. And that they have a good subsection in there that really makes the case for why ZKP. So because we have been sort of shouting that to the world for a while, we're getting folks coming in that are interested in that topic. And Otto made a wonderful introduction to the ZKID team within the Ethereum Foundation, and it's called the Privacy Stewards of Ethereum, PSE, and this is their homepage here. Also put the link in there. Otto, do you want to say a few words about this group and why, what their mission is?
Sure. So initially, the privacy scaling and explorations was the original meaning behind the PSE acronym. It hosted around 30 projects that the Ethereum Foundation had, including various CK libraries, Merkle tree utilities, anti-collusion, on-chain voting, various projects, also NFC passport scanning, and something we called AN and ADAR, allowing you to create CK proofs from your passport or from your ADAR credential. And these projects have now been consolidated, and we now created a general privacy division within the Ethereum Foundation, which is still kind of integrating into the larger Ethereum Foundation. And this particular team within the PSE division now specializes in, as the name said, zero knowledge identity. And in particular, the implementation of the OpenAC library is the current work item that the team is heavy at work on to provide an alternative to the Longfellow CK Google alternative that's there. So this is just another piece of the puzzle. Like, we don't intend this to be the be all end all CK framework for identity, right? There are flavors of CK out there, and then there are various libraries, CIRCOM, and others. So it's just one more piece of the puzzle. And the idea, I guess, that we'll talk about it in more detail next week.
Yeah, and that so thank you again for the introduction. I had a great call with the two members of that team that I think are co-authors of this paper about OpenAC. Interesting enough, Otto, I've never actually figured out why it's called OpenAC. Do you know what OpenAC means?
That's a great question. I think they just wanted a generic, more open name. But yeah, it's a great question. The general intent is just to provide something that both the EUDI and other oh, there you go. El Banana on Creds. Thank you, Jorge. Um,
Thank you, Jorge. That's what it is. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah,
no, no. So
we published back in November, and we're refining it now, and the actual libraries are being implemented, and yeah, we're excited for it. We put it out into the world. Also, like, don't think of just because I'm from the Ethereum Foundation that this only runs on a blockchain. Like, this is a general purpose ZK framework.
I was just about to explain that after you made the introduction, I had the call with them. And it is it's it's one of the deepest topics that we have to to tackle here in the Decentralized Trust Graph Working Group. That's why, and we knew that going into it, which is why we explicitly included in the charter and said, okay, there's a bunch of work going on in ZKP. There's a bunch of different flavors of ZKP. I'm not a cryptographer, just clarifying for everyone. I character myself as a connoisseur of cryptographers, but I'm about as good a connoisseur of cryptographers as I am of wine. Hopefully a little better than with the wine. And but I will note the most interesting cryptographers, or many of the most interesting, are working on ZKP. It's one of the most fascinating areas, and that's what I've learned is that Christian Bormann, who's on the Sprung team at in Germany, the government team that is on advanced initiatives working on their digital identity wallet. I think a year ago at IW gave an overview of it was either 7 or 8 different flavors of ZKP, and it's fantastic analysis. And there were like 40 people in the room going, "Wow, this is amazing," and like 3 people that actually could understand what he was saying. Right? He was trying to make it understandable why these different flavors and what are the pluses, minuses. They're still boiling it down because they really, as this last paragraph of the OpenAC paper really explains the things driving forward ZKP adoption in the market. Even though non-creds is something that supports it today, but that's based on Kamenisch Licentzia, and as cutting edge as it was at the time they're creating it, it's now considered sort of old school ZKP versus some of the modern algorithms that are either more efficient or more powerful or more expressive. It's just the branch of it that we need, and this education is mostly coming from Hart Montgomery at CTO of LF Decentralized Trust. He's the one he's my guru on this stuff. When we first came to him and Daniela Barbosa with the first person project and the proposal for establishing this decentralized trust graph working group, he said, "Oh, you need ZKP that can aggregate proofs. The multiple credentials you have of verifiable relationships, verifiable memberships, you need to be able to produce a proof of other proofs, and it's got to be efficient enough to run at the edge." And that became sort of our requirements around the whole thing. So I've been part of a lot of discussions, sort of going, okay, I know probably 6 different folks or groups out there that are working on pieces of that problem. And what's happening now is they're starting to come and say, oh, okay, how are we finally going to solve it, come together to do it? And the thing that's sort of precipitated finally establishing this task force is 2 of the vendors in the biometric liveness or biometric verification space, and I'll be specific, FaceTech and Realize. Cirrus is working with both of them, the Cirrus wallet project, because they want to be able to say, how can we provide proof of liveness in a privacy respecting way that will meet the requirements of the EUDI architectural reference framework. And they both have come to believe, partially because we've helped educate them, that that's going to require ZKP. And so they want to say, okay, what ZKP do we adopt that will allow our products and technologies to be used that way? And so they're the latest to come to the table and say, and where would we do that work? And so that's so this combination of the ZKID, the OpenID, OpenAC, which in the call I had with Zoe and I can't remember the other person that was on it, that you introduced, Otto, we talked about that. We talked about the aggregate proof and the performance requirements. And then Zoe subsequently read first person white paper and several other things and said she thinks that OpenAC is, is something that can work. And I said, well, fantastic. And so this is both the reason we're proposing, well, the next step before we, draw the line and formally start the task force. She has volunteered to present to us, and she's based in, I think it's Hong Kong, right, Otto?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So timing wise, she, I said, look, this is the meeting that's best attended, and I know it's going to be late. So it's going to be the first 30 minutes of our next meeting next week. So she doesn't have to stay up, till the latter half of the meeting. So just giving everyone in advance, we've scheduled her, and she's going to have several other members of her team to give us a 30-minute talk. She wants to leave room for Q&A. So it'll be 20 to 25 minutes them presenting on ZKID and OpenAC, and then a little Q&A, and that'll be the first half of our meeting next week. And that's just what I want to share. And then, so last thing I would just bring up, if you are involved or know of folks working on ZKP that you think is appropriate or should be interested in joining this new task force, let them know, because I think after next week's presentation, we'll give it another week for everyone to process that. And then now we've really got the process down, we can spin up a new repo and formally establish that task force, which will give us 6 active task forces. This is starting to be a pretty active party here.
Amazing.
And that
I
was,
just wanted to, that
go ahead.
Jorge is correct that this is different from the non-creds that you mentioned. So that's also worthwhile clarifying. Although, yeah, we obviously love non-creds for the pioneer work they did.
Yeah, exactly. I now understand why they call it OpenAC. And I hope that didn't. I've understood the term anonymous credentials. It goes back a long ways, and ZKP is a way of implementing them. Of course, the term non-creds then became tightly associated with that project at Hyperledger and still that implementation, which, just so folks know, that is how BC Gov, British Columbia and Canada, their wallet is all based on non-creds, and there are other projects out there that are using it in production today. So we're just taking the next step with ZKP. All right. Are there any other? We're almost at time. Any questions around that? If not, I think thank you, everyone. We managed to get through the whole agenda. Thank everyone for the time and energy, and please dive into those discussions. Remember, if either you start a new discussion or you add something to a discussion that you think folks should be aware of, just stick a link to that in the Discord channel. We have the option of creating Discord channels for any of the task forces. So I think right now only credentials and risk and harms prevention both have Discord channels. We can create them for the others. So whichever makes sense. I think if you put a link in the general DTD, our working group channel, the widest audience will see it. So that's what we got today, and appreciate it. We will see everyone. Remember, the first 30 minutes of next week will be a presentation from the Zoe and her team at ZKID. With that, I will let everyone get off to the next meetings, and I'm going to try and connect with Jeff and Martina if she's available. I'll ping the two of you to have a quick talk about the template.
Hey, Drummond.
Hey, go ahead, Carly.
Have you checked out the new Bite-sized Trust GitHub page?
Oh,
It's I put the link in the
no.
chat.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
And if anyone has
Oops.
content to add to it, of course, I'm always looking for more bite-sized trust content. I hope I didn't
There you
flub zero
go.
knowledge proofs too much, depending on what the experts say.
Okay, so
I waved my hands and said it was statistics or
is this
probability.
the EGWG Learning Pathways link?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I was looking for something that said bite-sized trust, but I'm going to add that
Oh, it's
up
also
in our,
there.
yeah, I'm going to put this up in the announcements section of the notes. So we have that. Fantastic. This is so cool. You had talked about doing that, and
Yeah, Sankershan's idea.
this new, yeah. If Sankernet has this way, we'll move everything to GitHub, and and you know, we'll all be GitHub happy. New page. Okay. Fantastic.
Nikki. Okay, cool.
Page on bite-sized trust. Excellent. Thank you for doing that. This is awesome. If folks aren't aware of Carly's amazing bite-sized trust library, it is just that amazing. We need to turn it into a
So
university course.
yeah, looking forward to getting the next sets of scripts out.
Good.
So
Yes. And then there'll be the whole, once we're
yeah, there's a
ready, there'll
whole
be the
lot
whole
here.
TTG sets. Yeah, exactly. All right. Happy Easter,
Okay.
everyone, and
Yeah.
we'll talk to everybody next week. You
Take
bet.
care, guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Save the chat.